The beginning of a new story. The year is 2031. Humanity has already become accustomed to strange interstellar visitors. We experienced the shock of Oumuamua, we observed Comet Borisov, we studied the giant Atlas. It seemed that we already know what to expect from the cold wanderers coming from the abyss. But at the end of December 2030, the world shook. The Vera Rubin Observatory telescope, located in Chile, suddenly detected a new object. At first, it seemed like a routine find, another rock, another piece of ice, something from the Kuiper Belt or the Oort cloud. Such discoveries occur almost every week. However, after a few days it became clear that the object was moving too fast for the local body. The trajectory is hyperbolic, which means he came from outside our star system. The most disturbing thing is that he is flying directly towards us. Its official name became 4I, Enigma, the fourth confirmed interstellar object. But in academic circles, he was immediately nicknamed differently, the Dark Wanderer. The reason is his ghostliness. Even the most sensitive cameras barely picked up the light reflected from its surface. Most asteroids reflect the sun's rays at least a little, but this one is like darkness itself, a piece of black matter cutting through space. This is where the new story begins. This is not the first time that we have seen interstellar visitors. But they had never behaved like this before. First observations. When the data about the new facility was first received by the Minor Planet Center International Database, no one gave them much importance. In the pictures, it looked like a tiny faint light, barely visible against the background of the stars. Dozens of such objects are recorded every month. But astronomers began to notice oddities. The trajectory. 2 days after the first measurements, it became clear that the object was moving in a hyperbolic orbit, which excludes its origin from our solar system. The speed is more than 120 km per second relative to the Sun. For comparison, Oumuamua was traveling at 87 km per second, which is even faster. The angle of entry into the solar system is also unusual. It comes from above, from an area above the galactic plane where there are almost no stars. Brightness and reflection of light. Its albedo, surface reflectivity, turned out to be lower than anything we've seen before. If Borisov shone like a comet's tail, and Atlas had a gas shell, then Enigma was almost completely invisible. It reflects less light than charcoal. Telescopes recorded it mainly not by reflection, but by the way it obscured distant stars, passing against their background. Sizes. The first calculations showed that the core diameter is about 50 to 60 kilometers. It is 10 times larger than Oumuamua, and about 5 times larger than Comet Borisov. The mass of the object can reach tens of trillions of tons. In fact, it is a flying mountain made of unknown material. Astronomers' reaction. At first, they thought it was a massive carbon asteroid, perhaps a piece of a destroyed planet. But it soon became clear, if it is so dark and massive, why is it moving, not accelerating towards the Sun, but rather slowing down? These data were confirmed by 3 independent observatories in Japan, Europe, and the USA. The first conclusions. In January 2031, the International Astronomical Union officially recognized the object as an interstellar visitor. Absolute darkness. The more scientists observed Enigma, the more the feeling grew that it was not just an interstellar rock. The impossible blackness. Even the blackest carbon in space reflects at least 3 to 4% of the light. Enigma, on the other hand, showed an albedo of less than 0.1%, as if it completely absorbs radiation. In the photos, he looked like a hole in space, a black silhouette against the starry sky. Scientists have started comparing it with a well-known material, vantablack, which on Earth is capable of absorbing up to 99.96% of light. But even vantablack couldn't explain the complete disappearance of the reflection. Mysterious temperature. Usually, interstellar objects begin to heat up and emit heat as they approach the Sun. The thermal sensors of the James Webb Telescope did not detect any infrared radiation. According to calculations, it should have been at least minus 180 degrees Celsius, but Enigma seemed to remain absolutely cold, as if something artificially kept its temperature. The first hypothesis: cosmic soot. Some researchers have suggested that the object is covered with a thick layer of cosmic soot, carbon nanoparticles formed during a supernova explosion. That could explain his blackness. But it did not explain the complete absence of thermal radiation. The second hypothesis: dark matter. Other scientists cautiously suggested that Enigma may consist of an unknown substance associated with dark matter. This was supported by his strange slowing down. It was as if he was interacting with forces we didn't understand. The problem is that dark matter has never been observed as compact bodies. The third hypothesis: disguise. The most disturbing version appeared in the behind-the-scenes reports. If the object absorbs light and heat so perfectly, maybe it's covered with an artificial material designed to disguise itself. That is, Enigma is not an asteroid, but something created by the mind. This version has not been published in scientific journals. Hidden fear. The longer Enigma was monitored, the more strange it became. And the more oddities scientists found, the more tension increased among the military and politicians. The first closed meetings. January 2031. A closed-door meeting was held at NASA headquarters in Houston, attended not only by astronomers, but also by representatives of the Pentagon. The discussion quickly went beyond scientific hypotheses. The military demanded an answer: could this be a threat? Astronomers tried to explain that there was too little data. But they were interrupted. If he does not reflect light and does not emit heat, then he does not want to be noticed. Why hide? Government response. The United States, China, Russia, and the EU almost simultaneously announced the creation of working groups to study the site. Access to the new data was restricted, and now the public received only carefully edited press releases. The most alarming thing was that all the large telescopes switched to secret observation mode. Even independent observatories in Japan and Chile have received recommendations to limit the publication of images. The uneasy silence in the media. The first news about the new interstellar object was quite cheerful in the press. Journalists compared it to Oumuamua and Comet Borisov. But after a few weeks, the news streams dried up abruptly. Leading scientific portals began to give dry reports like, "The object is moving steadily," without photographs and analyses. Any attempts by independent astronomers to publish superfluous data were quickly deleted or terminated with a reference to a technical error. 4.4 The first panic among scientists. Some of the scientists who worked on the Enigma data began to suspect censorship. In February, a group of astrophysicists from Germany tried to publish an article about the anomalous deceleration of the object. 2 days later, the article was removed from public access, and its authors were forbidden to comment. The first anomalies. By the beginning of spring 2031, Enigma had already become a major mystery for the military and astronomers. Officially, everything was calm. Another interstellar asteroid was flying past Earth. But in reality, things were happening that could not be attributed to chance. Signals from the darkness. In March, several radio telescopes, in Puerto Rico, the New Arecibo II station, Australia and South Africa, detected narrow, band pulses emanating from the Enigma direction. These pulses did not sound like natural cosmic noises. They went with a clear rhythm, one signal every 47 seconds. They were officially declared satellite interference, but independent scientists who received the data leaks argued, it's too pure for interference. It's like a transfer. Satellite failures. In April, 3 commercial communications satellites in geostationary orbit suffered serious failures almost simultaneously. At first, they started losing the signal, then they went silent for a few minutes, as if someone had intercepted the channel. When the connection was restored, it turned out that the flight logs had been erased. The official version is solar flares. But there was no activity on the sun at that time. Anomalies in the atmosphere. In the area of the supposed trajectory of Enigma, strange phenomena began to be recorded in the upper atmosphere: local magnetic field disturbances, sudden ionized spots similar to false auroras. These flashes were too local, as if someone was probing the Earth with an invisible ray. The disappearance of the plane. In May 2031, an airliner flying from Buenos Aires to Santiago disappeared from radar. He flew over the Andes Mountains, just in the area where Enigma passed closest to Earth. Search teams did not find any debris or traces of the disaster. The word anomaly appeared in the reports, but the journalists were informed of a probable accident. The first public panic. At first, everything was kept secret. But the world is not the same as it was in the 20th century. There are too many cameras, amateur radio operators, private telescopes and leaks. And hiding the truth turned out to be much more difficult than the governments had hoped. The first leaks. In May 2031, screenshots from radio telescopes appeared in anonymous forums of astrophysicists, rhythmic pulses every 47 seconds. A couple of weeks later, independent researchers made the spectrogram publicly available, and it quickly spread across social networks. People began to speculate, this is not an accident. That's the signal. Media reaction. Major TV channels tried to keep quiet, but independent bloggers and YouTube channels immediately made waves. The headlines began to sound like this. Is an alien ship flying into the solar system? Scientists are hiding the truth about Enigma. Every 47 seconds is a countdown. The more official sources denied, the less people believed. Mass alarm. The first rallies with posters appeared in large cities: "We have the right to know," and "Enigma is a contact." The internet was filled with videos about allegedly seen abnormal lights in the sky. A particularly strong panic arose in South America, where the airliner disappeared. People associated the tragedy with the flight of the object. The first mass hysteria. In June 2031, a crowd broke into a local astronomical observatory in Buenos Aires, demanding the truth about the missing flight and the black stone. Police dispersed the protest with tear gas, but the footage was distributed worldwide. A chain reaction began. The hashtag EnigmaTruth appeared on social media. Millions of people demanded answers. Secret missions. When it became clear that public opinion would not be appeased with words, governments moved to action. Enigma couldn't just be observed, it had to be examined up close. But no one has officially acknowledged this. The decision is a secret. In June 2031, the United States, China, and the EU separately launched closed interception programs. Technically, these were missions to explore space rocks, but in fact, the spacecraft's trajectories were designed to meet Enigma. Even the Allies kept these plans a secret from each other. The first probe. The United States was the first to launch the device, a modified ion-powered reconnaissance satellite. His task was simple: to get as close as possible and transmit a photo of the object. 11 hours after entering the trajectory, the connection was interrupted. The last signal received was an incomprehensible noise, as if someone had overwritten the channel. The Chinese attempt. The Chinese probe launched 2 weeks later. During the first day, he regularly transmitted telemetry. But when he approached Enigma at 2,000 kilometers, the cameras suddenly went blind. The report said, the lenses burned out from unknown radiation. A few minutes after that, the connection was finally cut off. The European apparatus. The Europeans tried to circumvent the problem. Their probe was equipped not only with cameras, but also with a laser lidar capable of feeling the surface of an object. The first data came. LiDAR showed an absolutely smooth spherical shape of the object at a depth of several tens of meters, although outwardly Enigma looked like a chaotic lump. The transfer lasted 8 minutes. Then the data stream turned into a steady signal that repeats every 47 seconds, just like the radio pulses recorded earlier from Earth. The main conclusion. By August 2031, it became clear. Enigma is not just a stone. He reacts to the approach of technology. And maybe he doesn't want to be investigated. The first encounter with the truth. Despite a series of failures, the scientists did not give up. Everyone understood that if Enigma is really capable of responding, then we have a chance to see something that humanity has never known before. Convergence. On October 17, 2031, Icarus entered the rendezvous trajectory. 3 hours before contact, the sensors began to detect anomalies in the radiophone, noises similar to human whispers, but in an unknown language. The recordings showed that the noise changed in response to commands that the operator sent to the device. It was like someone was listening. The first image. When the distance was reduced to 500 kilometers, Icarus switched on the optical module. And the first full-fledged Enigma image came to Earth. Instead of a chaotic stone mass, as previously assumed, the lens captured geometric patterns on the surface. Parallel lines. Perfectly smooth hexagonal depressions. Structures similar to hatches or panels. It was all too correct to be a natural formation. Enigma's response. At that moment, the device's signal changed dramatically. All the communication channels were filled with the same symbol, repeated over and over again. The hexagon. The same pattern that was visible on the surface of the object. Last seconds. For minutes after the image was transmitted, Icarus began to lose control. The sensors detected a powerful flow of energy emanating from the object. The last thing that could be transmitted was a short video frame. Something began to open on the surface of Enigma. Then the connection was cut off completely. Humanity's reaction. These cadres were preserved only by a narrow circle of scientists and military personnel. It was officially announced to the public, Icarus burned down from solar radiation. But there was an understanding among the initiates. Enigma is not an asteroid. Nor is it just a comet. It's an artificial object. And the worst part is that it's alive or controlled. Contact. After the Icarus mission, the military and scientists no longer had any doubts. Enigma is an artificial object. But up to this point, he was only reacting. Now it was the moment when he spoke for the first time. The first signals. In November 2031, radio telescopes in Chile and Australia began detecting new pulses. They came strictly every 47 seconds, as before, but now their structure has changed. Within the pulse, scientists have identified a repeating mathematical series. 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, 13, 17. Prime numbers. It was a universal signal language that could not be confused with natural noise. Establishing a dialogue. The labs at Harvard and Tokyo have joined forces. The scientists responded to the signal by sending a radio message in the direction of Enigma with the same range, but continued further. After 94 seconds, the object replied, confirming the correctness. This is how the first data exchange began. The first message. After a week of exchanges, the series of prime numbers changed to geometric patterns of triangles, squares, and hexagons again. The images were encoded in radio waves, like pixelated drawings. Scientists have realized that Enigma conveys an alphabet of shapes. But the main shock came when the patterns formed into a shape resembling the silhouette of a human palm. People's reactions. This was a turning point for the scientific community. Even the most skeptical voices were forced to admit that it was a contact. But the governments reacted differently. The United States declared the signal a threat to national security. China demanded that any attempts to respond be stopped immediately. And massive discussions began in Europe about whether it was worth engaging in dialogue at all. The main question. Now humanity is divided. Some believe that this was an invitation, Enigma showed the way. Others thought it was a warning, or even a trap. But one thing was clear, we are no longer alone in the universe. Effects. After scientists confirmed that Enigma had made contact, the world could no longer remain the same. Information leak. Despite government attempts to conceal the facts, recordings of the signals were leaked online. An amateur astronomer from Argentina has published a transcript of numerical sequences and geometric symbols. Within a day, the news spread all over the world. Millions of people have seen the palm image from the signals and the Vega system map. Mass reaction. Some took this as a sign of hope. Religious communities announced that humanity had met with heavenly messengers. Others, as a threat, rallies began in New York, Tokyo, and Paris demanding that the facility be destroyed before it is too late. Financial markets collapsed, shares of space companies jumped, and traditional industries went down. People began to buy generators, weapons, and satellite dishes in large quantities. Political crisis. The UN has called an emergency meeting. The US and China accused each other of secret negotiations with the facility. Europe proposed to create a single international communication center with Enigma, but the idea failed. No country wanted to share the data. It was discussed on the sidelines. If this is an invasion, then no one is ready for war. The first cults. Sects began to appear in different countries claiming that Enigma is a god who has returned to his children. In Brazil, followers of the hexagon movement lined up every night in the shape of a giant object, hoping that the object would see them. At the same time, the radical group, Cleaners, appeared in the United States, which demanded the destruction of all radio telescopes in order to not give the coordinates of the Earth to the enemy. Object movement. Amid the panic, few people paid attention to the most important thing. Enigma has changed its trajectory. Instead of flying further into space, as expected, he began to slow down. Astronomers have calculated that by February 2032, the observer's orbit. In February 2032, it became clear that Enigma was not leaving. On the contrary, he chooses a position from which he can observe the Earth constantly. Maneuver. Astronomers have recorded a decrease in the object's velocity. February 14th, Enigma entered a stable orbit between Earth and Mars. This place is not accidental. It is ideal for viewing both planets. Minimal energy costs. And a symbolic, neutral position, not too close, but not too far either. The first eclipse. At the end of February, telescopes captured a rare phenomenon. Enigma passed right against the background of the sun. His silhouette was clearly visible, a giant dark hexagon. Millions of people saw the footage on the news. For some, it was proof of the reality of contact, for others it was a reminder of how small we are. An observer, not a guest. It soon became clear, the object was conducting a systematic scan of the Earth. The satellites detected narrowly focused radio beams going to different regions of the planet. Feature: the rays concentrated on megacities, New York, Beijing, Tokyo, Paris. Scientists argued. Is he collecting data about civilization? Or is it a preparation for the next stage? Silence after the dialogue. The object has been silent since entering orbit. The radio signals stopped. Only rare impulses, like a communication check. It was scarier than any message. Humanity did not understand what it was waiting for. The new reality. The waiting era has arrived for people. The world is divided into three camps. Observers are scientists who insist on continuing the dialogue. Defensists are military men who demand to prepare for a possible attack. The forsaken are people and movements who believe that the object will bring the end of civilization and that it is necessary to return to a pre-cosmic way of life. The first intervention. After months of silence and passive observation, Enigma intervened in Earth's life for the first time. This was a turning point, from a curious neighbor to an active player. Day of failure. On June 9, 2032, a mysterious phenomenon occurred all over the world at the same time. All navigation satellites, GPS, GLONASS, Beidou, Galileo, failed. The shutdown time was exactly 11 minutes and 6 seconds. At these moments, planes lost their course, ships lost their routes, and transport stopped in megacities. Then everything was restored, as if nothing had happened. A signal should be given. Independent scientists have recorded that at the time of the failure, a powerful narrowly focused beam of radiation emanated from Enigma, directed into the Earth's atmosphere. The radiation spectrum did not match any known source. It was as if he had rewrote the planet's information channels, and then switched off. The first message through intervention. Immediately after the outage, an image of a hexagon flickering against a gray background appeared on all television channels in Japan and South Korea for several seconds. It was followed by a series of numbers. 203200609. Scientists quickly realized that this was the date of the event itself. Enigma has indicated for the first time that it is aware of time in our calendars. Panic and consequences. Exchanges collapsed even more. Many countries declared a state of emergency. In Tokyo, crowds of people took to the streets, convinced that this is the beginning of the invasion. New theories immediately appeared on the internet. Enigma is rewriting the Earth. He is testing control over the infrastructure. This is a warning, we can if we want to. Symbolic meaning. For humanity, this day has become known as the first intervention. From that moment on, no one could consider Enigma a harmless observer anymore. Humanity's response. After the first intervention, it became clear that it was no longer possible to ignore Enigma. The moment has come when governments and scientists have begun to act. Creating a coalition. In July 2032, at an emergency meeting of the United Nations, a new body was created, the International Contact Council, ICC. It includes scientists, military personnel, and diplomats from 40 countries. The Council's task: coordinate the research of the facility, conduct an official dialogue, and develop an action plan in case of aggression. However, real cooperation turned out to be an illusion. Behind closed doors, each country acted on its own. An attempt at dialogue. On August 17, 2032, the Council sent Enigma the first collective radio message. It contained a greeting in binary language, simple geometric symbols, images of the Earth and the solar system. The answer came 11 minutes later. Enigma repeated all the symbols, but added a new one, a rotating hexagon with a dot in the center. The scientists argued. Is this a designation of the Earth? Or a sign that the object is focused on humanity? Global separation. The world was completely divided. The dialogists insisted on continuing negotiations and scientific exchange. Isolationists demanded silence in order not to provoke the object. The Hawks believed that Enigma needed to be destroyed until he made the first move. Mass demonstrations appeared on the streets of major cities, sometimes escalating into riots. The first interview. In November 2032, Enigma changed tactics for the first time. It responded to the collective signal of the Council with a sound, not a number. A low, booming voice consisting of one word rang out on all the radio channels of the world. I'm watching. It was a shock. For the first time Enigma used human language. But even more frightening was that he chose Russian, one of the world's languages, rather than English or Chinese. The first warning. After the first interview with humanity in November 2032, it became clear that Enigma was ready for the next step. Up to this point, he had demonstrated knowledge and strength, but now, for the first time, there was a hint of a condition. Day of Silence. On December 21, 2032, winter solstice, a strange event occurred. All radio stations in the world, regardless of frequency and power, simultaneously went silent for 66 seconds. Instead of air, only a steady low hum could be heard. After this signal, light flashes resembling hexagons hanging in the clouds appeared in the sky over major capitals. Millions of people watched them with their own eyes. The second word. A few hours later, Enigma started talking again. A short word was heard on all open channels, in all countries. It's coming. It was pronounced in English, Russian, Chinese, Arabic, and Spanish, one after the other. The time to pronounce each version is 47 seconds, exactly like his impulses in the past. The reaction of the world. There have been mass protests and panic in different countries. Some took the word as a warning of disaster. Religious groups have announced, it's a sign of the end of time. New theories immediately appeared on the internet. Enigma predicts a natural disaster. He hints at the approach of something more. Or it's an announcement about the arrival of its creators. The secret meeting. In January 2033, the leaders of the Nuclear Five held a closed-door meeting. Intelligence reports indicated that Enigma had begun to emit weak gravitational waves heading towards Vega. It looked like a beacon signal, as if he was calling someone. The scariest hypothesis. Enigma is not a target, but a transmitter that prepares the arrival of others. A psychological blow. For the first time, people realized that we are not in control of the situation. We cannot predict the next step. We only have waiting time. Waiting time. After Enigma uttered its word, coming, a new stage in the history of mankind began. For the first time in civilization, there was a specific waiting period, although no one knew exactly how long it was left before the event. This time has become a time of anxiety, predictions, and splits. The scientific front. Astronomers around the world have switched to monitoring the sky in the direction of Vega. The observatories recorded weak gravitational fluctuations emanating from Enigma once every 29 hours. They resembled a series of pulses, similar to a lighthouse. Each pulse was stronger than the previous one, as if the signal was gaining power. Mathematicians began to calculate patterns. Some have suggested Enigma counts down the time. Each reinforcement is a step towards the arrival of something more. Religious and philosophical movements. Churches, mosques and temples were crowded. New sects appeared. The messengers of Vega, who believed that Enigma would bring salvation and the ascension of mankind. The sons of the sun believed that the punishment for sins was approaching. Code X was a group of technophiles who claimed that Enigma was an artificial intelligence as ancient as the galaxy itself. Each camp interpreted coming in its own way, adding to the chaos. 15.5 Quiet panic among the elite. Two scenarios were discussed in private circles. Peaceful contact means that civilization will be able to reach a new level. Hostile contact is the end of the human era. Secret bunkers and orbital platforms began to be built. There is information that private corporations are preparing ark ships to escape from Earth, if humanity has even the slightest chance. In February 2033, scientists noticed a pattern. Every 29 hours, the Enigma signal increased by 0.3%. If the trend continues, the peak capacity will be in October 2033. This became the starting point for all predictions. That's when something should happen. The world got a date. Waiting time. After Enigma uttered its word, coming, a new stage in the history of mankind began. For the first time in civilization, there was a specific waiting period, although no one knew exactly how long it was left before the event. This time has become a time of anxiety, predictions, and splits. The scientific front. Astronomers around the world have switched to monitoring the sky in the direction of Vega. The observatories recorded weak gravitational fluctuations emanating from Enigma once every 29 hours. They resembled a series of pulses, similar to a lighthouse. Each pulse was stronger than the previous one, as if the signal was gaining power. Mathematicians began to calculate patterns. Some have suggested Enigma counts down the time. Each reinforcement is a step towards the arrival of something more. Religious and philosophical movements. Churches, mosques and temples were crowded. New sects appeared. The messengers of Vega, who believed that Enigma would bring salvation and the ascension of mankind. The sons of the sun believed that the punishment for sins was approaching. Code X was a group of technophiles who claimed that Enigma was an artificial intelligence as ancient as the galaxy itself. Each camp interpreted coming in its own way, adding to the chaos. 15.5 Quiet panic among the elite. Two scenarios were discussed in private circles. Peaceful contact means that civilization will be able to reach a new level. Hostile contact is the end of the human era. Secret bunkers and orbital platforms began to be built. There is information that private corporations are preparing ark ships to escape from Earth, if humanity has even the slightest chance. In February 2033, scientists noticed a pattern. Every 29 hours, the Enigma signal increased by 0.3%. If the trend continues, the peak capacity will be in October 2033. This became the starting point for all predictions. That's when something should happen. The world got a date. Recent months. By the middle of 2033, the wait had become unbearable. The world lived with the idea that an event was going to happen in October, which Enigma had warned about. The closer the deadline got, the more the atmosphere thickened, from hysteria and fear to strange inspiration. Summer 2033. June, July, Enigma signals reached half of the predicted power. Even amateur radio telescopes began to pick them up. Any student with the equipment could catch the voice of the universe. This led to a new surge of interest. Millions of people around the world listened to and recorded these impulses. The media called it the rumble of the end of the world. The breakdown of civilization. The world community has finally divided. Waiting to die, they built shelters, bought food, and prepared for chaos. Awaiting revelation, they conducted mass rituals, celebrations, and music festivals, calling themselves the Contact Generation. Deniers, they considered everything to be cosmic noise, but there were fewer and fewer of them. The cities lived in an atmosphere of a strange carnival. Fear and hope existed side by side. Secret projects. The United States, China, and the EU hastily launched satellites and unmanned probes aimed at Enigma. In August, one probe disappeared from telemetry as it approached the object. 2 days later, his cameras sent him a single shot. A giant smooth surface reflecting light like metal. And mysterious geometric lines extending deep into it. The photo was classified, but in September, fragments of it leaked online. October 1, 2033. Enigma signals have reached maximum power. For the first time, they could be heard without radio equipment. A subtle hum was felt right in the ears, like an internal resonance. Some people started having headaches and hallucinations. They thought they were hearing whispers in an unknown language. Doctors have recorded massive cases of engemophobia, psychosis caused by the expectation of contact. Day of contact. 17.1, morning. October 14, 2033, began with an alarming silence. There were live broadcasts on all channels, cameras from observatories, satellites, telescopes, even amateur streams. People were not working, schools were closed, and many streets were empty. The cities resembled waiting theaters, some gathered at the screens, others on the roofs of houses to see Enigma with their own eyes. The signal was amplified every few hours, and it seemed that the entire space of the Earth was filled with a low, vibrating tone. 1500 hours Universal Time Coordinated, the Great Signal. From Enigma burst a series of pulses of incredible power. Radio telescopes all over the world have adopted the same sequence. Within 10 minutes, a single global signal was transmitted, covering the entire planet. Computers recorded it as an array of binary codes, but the paradox is that some people heard it without equipment. Some claim to have heard music. Others are a voice addressed to them personally. Still others saw flashes of images right in their minds. Evening. The glow around Enigma intensified, turning into a huge halo, visible even to the naked eye. For the first time in history, people could look at an interstellar object directly from the streets. It glowed in the sky like a second moon. At 2000 hours Universal Time Coordinated, for exactly 1 minute, electricity went out all over the Earth. The cities were drowned in darkness, and only Enigma shone in the sky. Many later called this moment the evening of universal silence. After the outbreak, the glow was gone. Enigma became dark and silent again. But now his trajectory had changed. He was no longer flying towards the sun, but was slowly moving away, as if he had completed his mission. The world stood in a daze. There was no apocalypse. There were no alien ships. There was only contact, which everyone perceived in their own way. Day of contact. 17.1 Morning. October 14, 2033, began with an alarming silence. There were live broadcasts on all channels, cameras from observatories, satellites, telescopes, even amateur streams. People were not working, schools were closed, and many streets were empty. The cities resembled waiting theaters, some gathered at the screens, others on the roofs of houses to see Enigma with their own eyes. The signal was amplified every few hours, and it seemed that the entire space of the Earth was filled with a low, vibrating tone. 1500 hours Universal Time Coordinated, the Great Signal. From Enigma burst a series of pulses of incredible power. Radio telescopes all over the world have adopted the same sequence. Within 10 minutes, a single global signal was transmitted, covering the entire planet. Computers recorded it as an array of binary codes, but the paradox is that some people heard it without equipment. Some claim to have heard music. Others are a voice addressed to them personally. Still others saw flashes of images right in their minds. Evening. The glow around Enigma intensified, turning into a huge halo, visible even to the naked eye. For the first time in history, people could look at an interstellar object directly from the streets. It glowed in the sky like a second moon. At 2000 hours Universal Time Coordinated, for exactly 1 minute, electricity went out all over the Earth. The cities were drowned in darkness, and only Enigma shone in the sky. Many later called this moment the evening of universal silence. After the outbreak, the glow was gone. Enigma became dark and silent again. But now his trajectory had changed. He was no longer flying towards the sun, but was slowly moving away, as if he had completed his mission. The world stood in a daze. There was no apocalypse. There were no alien ships. There was only contact, which everyone perceived in their own way. Consequences of the day of contact. After October 14, 2033, the world has never been the same. Enigma has disappeared, leaving billions of people with new experiences, discoveries, and fears. The period of adaptation to the post-contact reality has begun. Global reaction. A mixture of relief and anxiety reigned on the planet. Relief: there was no catastrophe, no alien armies came. Alarm: no one understood what exactly Enigma was trying to convey. Social media exploded with discussions. What do the symbols infinity, left-right arrow, 2 mean? Why did we feel this personally? Scientists have created the first entomological centers to study signals and their effects on consciousness. Changes in people's minds. Millions of people have reported unusual mental effects. Increased intuition and creativity. New skills in mathematical and linguistic understanding. Rare cases of collective synchronization of thoughts. Some called it the contact effect, implying that Enigma had somehow left a part of itself in the consciousness of humanity. The scientific revolution. There is a new interest in space and interstellar life. The space industry has received huge investments. Telescopes and radio networks have been upgraded to capture such signals. And physicists have begun to study new types of pulses and gravitational anomalies emanating from interstellar objects. For the first time, scientists have seriously considered the hypothesis of the psychophysical effects of interstellar signals on the human brain. Politics and economics. Many states have revised their priorities. Space security and scientific missions have come to the fore. Military conflicts have temporarily decreased, as attention has shifted to preparing for new contacts. Large corporations have started investing in TV transmission and data processing technologies based on the study of Enigma signals. Cultural influence. Art has changed radically. Music began to be based on frequencies and rhythms similar to Enigma signals. Cinema and literature began to explore the concepts of contact and unity of consciousness. The symbols, infinity, left-right arrow, 2, began to be used as a motif in painting and architecture. There was a new generation of children, born after contact, who were considered more susceptible to interstellar signals. Religion and philosophy. Religious movements transformed. Some claimed that Enigma was a manifestation of the divine mind. Others considered it the first step towards the cosmic enlightenment of mankind. New philosophical trends have emerged that combine science and spirituality. The idea that humanity is part of a single interstellar intelligence has become popular. A new level of training. Although there was no immediate threat, the world realized that Enigma had not disappeared forever. Interstellar objects could have intelligence, and humanity needed to be prepared for further contact. New research stations on the Moon and Mars were being created, as well as autonomous probes to catch signals from deep space. Psychological effect. People began to feel a new connection with the cosmos. Many claimed that they began to feel the rhythms of the universe. There was a global trend towards joint meditation, stargazing and collective learning. Enigma has become a symbol of a new era of consciousness, where the boundaries between science, art and spirituality are gradually blurring. Cultural influence. Art has changed radically. Music began to be based on frequencies and rhythms similar to Enigma signals. Cinema and literature began to explore the concepts of contact and unity of consciousness. The symbols, infinity, left-right arrow, 2, began to be used as a motif in painting and architecture. There was a new generation of children, born after contact, who were considered more susceptible to interstellar signals. Religion and philosophy. Religious movements transformed. Some claimed that Enigma was a manifestation of the divine mind. Others considered it the first step towards the cosmic enlightenment of mankind. New philosophical trends have emerged that combine science and spirituality. The idea that humanity is part of a single interstellar intelligence has become popular. A new level of training. Although there was no immediate threat, the world realized that Enigma had not disappeared forever. Interstellar objects could have intelligence, and humanity needed to be prepared for further contact. New research stations on the Moon and Mars were being created, as well as autonomous probes to catch signals from deep space. Psychological effect. People began to feel a new connection with the cosmos. Many claimed that they began to feel the rhythms of the universe. There was a global trend towards joint meditation, stargazing and collective learning. Enigma has become a symbol of a new era of consciousness, where the boundaries between science, art and spirituality are gradually blurring. The mysteries of Enigma symbols, infinity, left-right arrow, 2. After Contact Day on October 14, 2033, millions of people around the world tried to understand the meaning of the sequence infinity, left-right arrow, 2 transmitted by Enigma. This symbolic code became the key to the next stage of studying contact. The first hypotheses. Scientists and philosophers began to analyze each symbol separately. Infinity. It can symbolize eternity, infinite space, or an endless cycle of life and energy. Some have suggested that this is a sign of the continuity of the universe or the eternal mind that watches over humanity. Double-sided arrow. It was considered as an indication of interaction or exchange. Possible meanings. Connection between humans and Enigma. Interstellar interaction. Movement between worlds or dimensions. 2. The number can mean pairs, duality, choice, or the next stage, which includes two directions. Some mystics interpreted this as a signal of the existence of another conscious object besides Enigma. Decryption attempts. Global teams of mathematicians have created algorithms to find patterns. Cryptography is the verification of a cipher based on binary Enigma signal data. Numerology is the search for hidden meanings of numbers in a sequence. Semiotics is the study of symbols as linguistic signs for human consciousness. The conclusion was strange: the symbols turned out to be both understandable and incomprehensible. They evoked similar feelings among millions of people. But they had no concrete practical significance yet. Psychological effect. People who tried to decipher the symbols reported unusual sensations. Short-term visions of space objects. A sense of unity with nature. A feeling of the sound of color or the color of sound. Some believe that Enigma did not just transmit information, but influenced consciousness so that each person understood the symbol in their own way. Cultural influence. Symbols have become a motif for new art trends. Architects created buildings with the shape of infinity and left-right arrow. And composers built symphonies based on the rhythms of the number 2. The artists developed abstract paintings that convey a sense of infinity and two-way communication. The symbols have become a global cultural meme that unites people of all ages and nationalities. A scientific mystery. Scientists have suggested several options. Symbols are an interstellar signal transmitted in the form of universal logic. Enigma used them to test human perception: who is ready for the next contact. Symbols are an information key that can be unlocked only through the development of human consciousness. Conclusion. To date, symbols remain the main mystery of Enigma contact. They demonstrate that contact was not only physical, but also cognitive, influencing the thinking, perception, and culture of mankind. It seems that Enigma has left an intellectual legacy that humanity will decipher for centuries. The prelude to the next contact. After the events of October 14, 2033, humanity found itself in a state of constant readiness. Enigma left a mystery that could not be ignored. The signal and symbols became harbingers of a new stage of contacts with interstellar objects. Global mobilization. Governments and corporations have joined forces to create space surveillance networks. A new series of radio telescopes and optical observatories. Automatic probes and satellites for deep space. Artificial intelligence systems for real-time signal analysis. Every major space agency has begun to develop a strategy for responding to new signals immediately. Scientific projects. The ECHO project has been created, an international program aimed at studying Enigma signals, testing hypotheses about cognitive effects on humans, and preparing for a possible physical encounter with objects of interstellar origin. The world's leading laboratories have jointly investigated the interaction of the symbols infinity, left-right arrow, 2 with consciousness. Artificial contact simulations have been developed so that people can train and adapt to the mental effects of future signals. Preparing for a possible second visit. Enigma left a feeling of cyclicity. The symbol infinity hinted that contact could happen again. Scientists predicted that the object could reappear in tens or hundreds of years, but some believed that the second appearance would be much closer and more intense. Protocols have been developed. How to interact with an object. How to protect the population. And how to capture information for science as effectively as possible. A new worldview. People began to perceive space not as an empty space, but as a living, interactive field of consciousness. Education and culture have been rebuilt. The study of space and signals has become compulsory in schools. Philosophy and science have merged into new disciplines studying cosmic consciousness. A new generation of scientists and researchers has emerged, the descendants of contact, who from childhood perceived enigma signals as the norm. Potential scenarios for the next contact. Scientists have identified several hypotheses. Peaceful contact, the object reappears, leaving additional knowledge. The test for humanity is to test the readiness of a civilization to interact with advanced life forms. An invisible threat, an object can remain hidden, watching humanity, and the signal is only a warning. Complex communication, the symbol's infinity, left-right arrow, 2, is part of a multi-layered language that will be revealed only through the joint work of science and the consciousness of mankind. The psychological effect of preparation. People have learned to live with a sense of constant expectation. Fear and anxiety have been replaced by concentration and discipline. And a new sense of unity has been formed. And the enigma symbols have become a global reminder that humanity is part of something bigger. Conclusion. The prelude to the next contact is an era of preparation, observation, and self-development. The world knows that enigma can reappear, and humanity will no longer be unarmed. The 2033-2040s became a period of building a connection with space, expanding knowledge and strengthening mental stability before a possible new round of contact. A new worldview. People began to perceive space not as an empty space, but as a living, interactive field of consciousness. Education and culture have been rebuilt. The study of space and signals has become compulsory in schools. Philosophy and science have merged into new disciplines studying cosmic consciousness. A new generation of scientists and researchers has emerged, the descendants of contact, who from childhood perceived enigma signals as the norm. Potential scenarios for the next contact. Scientists have identified several hypotheses. Peaceful contact, the object reappears, leaving additional knowledge. The test for humanity is to test the readiness of a civilization to interact with advanced life forms. An invisible threat, an object can remain hidden, watching humanity, and the signal is only a warning. Complex communication, the symbol's infinity, left-right arrow, 2, is part of a multi-layered language that will be revealed only through the joint work of science and the consciousness of mankind. The psychological effect of preparation. People have learned to live with a sense of constant expectation. Fear and anxiety have been replaced by concentration and discipline. And a new sense of unity has been formed. And the enigma symbols have become a global reminder that humanity is part of something bigger. Conclusion. The prelude to the next contact is an era of preparation, observation, and self-development. The world knows that enigma can reappear, and humanity will no longer be unarmed. The 2033-2040s became a period of building a connection with space, expanding knowledge and strengthening mental stability before a possible new round of contact. The finale is a new dawn of humanity. Silence before a new round. After preparing for the next contact, the world became different. People have learned to live with the idea that the universe is a living system watching them. Enigma symbols infinity, left-right arrow, 2 have become a part of culture, science, and the psyche of every human being. The cities were built with space observation in mind. Education and art intertwined with science, and new disciplines explored cognitive and energetic connections with interstellar signals. The planet felt united in anticipation of the next stage. The day of the second contact arrives. A few years after 2033, a new object appeared, similar to Enigma, but with a more complex structure. The whole world was watching at the same time. Light pulses. Fluctuations in radio signals. Changes in magnetic fields. People were not afraid, they were ready, realizing that contact is a challenge to consciousness, not a threat to life. 21.4 The Revolution of Civilization. Social and technological changes. New forms of communication and communication on the planet. Space stations and probes have become part of everyday life. Interstellar exploration is a key priority of humanity. People stopped being afraid of the unknown. They have learned to cooperate with the mysteries of the universe, turning them into knowledge. 21.6 The result. The history of Enigma has shown that contact with extraterrestrial intelligence does not necessarily destroy humanity. It reveals the potential of consciousness, makes it unite and develop. Enigma has become a catalyst for evolution, and symbols are an eternal reminder that the universe is bigger than we can imagine, and we are part of its endless journey.